Good evening, everyone. Mark Wilkinson here, live from London, a very, very hot London, although we just have had a bit of a thunderstorm, so it's kind of clearing a little bit. This is Book Club. Every Tuesday we do a book club. We look at the Life Remixed book, obviously, that I put out earlier this year. It's doing great. Some wonderful reviews. It's getting around the globe. And I'm really grateful for all of the support and all of the interest and all the great things that are going on in the world around this book and helping other people. So as I've said, it's book club. We look at each chapter. Tonight's chapter 12, which is called Testify. And it's really about sort of overcoming fears, learning to sort of tell your story and actually put yourself out there rather than just tiptoeing through life, hoping to get safely to death, as Earl Nightingale said. It's really about, putting yourself out there, testifying about what's happened to you, your story, being confident enough in yourself to share it, and then being able to help as many people as possible. That's certainly my mission, and it's going great, which is good, which is wonderful, and I'm really most grateful for it. I'm also fortunate enough, as I go through all of these interviews and all the people we speak to. We had Fatboy Slim the other week. We had Chris Lemons from the Last Breath documentary on Netflix. We've had some wonderful, wonderful guests, and tonight is absolutely no exception. I've got a guy joining me tonight all the way from South Africa. Essentially, he reached out to me a few weeks ago and said, look, I don't know why we don't know each other as such, because we've got very, very similar stories. And we went through it together, and we had a Zoom call, and I was like, you are a really interesting guy and I need you in my life, and let's have a book club session together. So I'm really pleased to have Lloyd Cornwall joining me tonight, all the way from South Africa. This is a guy who's like an entrepreneur. He's a Surrey boy done good, right? So Surrey boys and all that good stuff. He's done 30 years in the dance music industry. He's travelled all over the globe. He now owns the biggest festival in Africa. Let me say that again. He now owns the biggest festival in Africa. And he's also a mentor and a coach, and he's had his own life remixed and his own recovery and his own peace. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in the man like Lloyd Cornwall from South Africa. Let's bring him in. Hello, Lloyd.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
How are you, mate? Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Yeah, a bit cold. Winter down here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's not that chilly though, is it?
Not like you do, chilly.
It's not a northern hemisphere. I remember being in South Africa in the winter and in Australia in the winter as well, and it's not a northern hemisphere cold at all, is it?
No. I was wondering the other day what you used to scrape the ice off the windscreen in the morning. Now you can't buy CDs.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it is a bit chilly. I don't love the winters here, I've got to be honest with you. But at the moment, I'm very happy. I'm building businesses and doing great things here, and it's the right place, the right time. And as we well know, life just has a way of kind of working out ultimately when you follow certain universal laws. Now, you've got in touch with me, obviously, after the Fatboy Slim interview. You introduced yourself with a wonderful, wonderful message. And I was like, this guy sounds really interesting. I need to talk to him. I need to have more, conversations with him. I've given you a little bit of a big up there, haven't I? Why don't you give us a bit more of a background about, your story to start with before we get into, the quotes and then the actual chapter of Life Remixed?
Well, I ended up in the music industry, I guess, by mistake. I mean, I went to school with Matt and Luke from Bros. As everybody knows, they came from Camberley. They went to Collingwood School, which is where I went, and they were my best mates all through school. I was actually in the band. We created a band, and it was called Gloss, and then it was called this, and then it was called that. I left the band just before it all got famous, but then I joined back into the touring party 6 months later. So I accidentally landed up in the music industry, and I was on that world tour for 2 years. So, between the age of sort of 17 and 19, I toured all over the world with Matt and Luke, and I was, an assistant. CBS Records would pay me a nominal fee, and I would just make sure that we had plenty of hairspray in the room and whatever it is that we needed. But, it was quite interesting because I was it was cool knowing the pop stars and going to all the live morning shows like Number 49 and, hanging out with Curiosity Killed the Cat and all those guys. But I didn't want to be a pop star, I wanted to be one of the guys in the background with all the mobile phones and the bum bags full of money, because I could see there was loads of money around this, and from what I could see, Matt and Luke weren't getting much of it, you know. So you know, after the Bros tour, I got sucked up into the dance scene. I went out to Ibiza, loved it in Ibiza, 88 and 89, and obviously fell in love with dance music, fell in love with drugs, and fell in love with, you know, escape, which is, you know, what drugs are. We've all got a different poison, whether it be, you know, alcohol, marijuana, coke, sex, whatever it may be. And that was it, really. After Ibiza, I went back to London, started putting on my own events, the Funky Chicken. I had a club night in Camberley. Johnny Walker actually used to play at the club night. It used to be on a Sunday night after Full Circle. So it was in Camberley. So it wasn't too far to go from Full Circle to Bracknell to Simpsons for Shave Your Tongue, and then on to Camberley. So you could imagine the kind of what sort of state people would arrive in, because they've been out Friday night, Saturday night, they've done Full Circle, they've done Shave Your Tongue, and they finally got to me. I mean, you know, talking about picking up the dregs. People were in a, you know, and then, you know, I've always, you know, loved dance music. It's all I know. And I was, you know, running clubs in London. I used to do a lot of stuff at the Ministry of Sound. And then I was head of international brand partnerships at Ministry of Sound. So I looked after all their global sponsorships. So I did a global deal with Philips, and we toured the world with that. And yeah, but I mean, you know, this is probably, I know it's like a war story to me now, but this is probably the boring part of my life, really. Looking back on it, because life only really began for me when I remixed it and started again, and I broke it all down. But yeah, I mean, traveled the world with Ministry, did all that, and then ended up in South Africa 25 years ago. And you know what was so amazing, when we got here, dance music was just starting to come out, you know, all night raves and everything like that. I mean, we were 6-7 years in, we were up to our shoulders with it already. It was normal to go out for 4 days. So I opened a club, and then I was putting on all night dance. In fact, when you next speak to Danny, I did the first Danny Rampling event in South Africa when we brought him out here in '95. And it was the first time he came over, and it was the first big all-nighter we did over here. But you know, that whole scene, I was in it, you know, 20 years, and it destroyed me. You know, over a period of time, you know, I was in it. I guess I was in it because we loved it, but then, as we all know, after a while, the drugs stopped working, and you don't make financial decisions when you're on it. You know, you don't make, you know, it's not the cost of the drugs and the alcohol. That's not the reason you're broke. It's the lifestyle that goes with it. It's the poor decision making that goes with it. The not taking responsibility for one's life, not having any kind of program whatsoever, just waking up and doing what's in front of you. And without swearing, the you know, effort preceded pretty much every business decision I made. It was just like, oh well, do it. And
it's like surviving, isn't it? It's ultimately, you know, you think you're living, you think you're getting away with it, you think you're having this big, like, aren't I great having this big kind of lifestyle to get, you know, but it's ultimately escapism, and the thing that you're running from the most is yourself, right?
Well, it's like Facebook. It's like your life is like Facebook, because everyone's seeing the exciting and traveling, and I'm on a private jet, and I'm going to a gig with Carl Cox, or I'm going back to Ibiza every year to do the season with Head Candy. But what nobody sees is what goes on. You know, you see the little magic moments, but what's going on behind the scenes? And for me, I mean, there's something we talk about in the program that I kind of live in. We talk about the reason we were escaping was to find that release, but then would come the Four Horsemen, and the Four Horsemen, it's the awful awakening to face the hideous Four Horsemen, which is terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. You know, they're the Four Horsemen, and you know, I woke up with the Four Horsemen 4 times a week. You know, and I remember mornings when you just, you know, you couldn't take the duvet off from over your head because you didn't know what carnage was out there. You didn't know what really happened. It was just, everything was a mess. There was no program. You were just kind of stumbling along. Yeah, you're making a bit of money here and losing a bit there and making a bit here, but none of it really mattered until one took stock and remixed. and I think took responsibility for my life.
So we're getting a few messages in early, so I'm going to throw them up on the screen. So we've got Mark John. I think he knows you. Hey, Lloyd. Hey, brother Lloyd. Power.
He's an amazing human being. He's an amazing human being.
Welcome along, Mark. Welcome along. Gav, who was on here last week, says, Lloyd, mate, fascinating opening. Love it. yeah. It's not every day you meet someone who's in Bros. Early doors. Kenny knows you as well, I think. And he says, nice, Lloydie. So we're getting a few people. If you'd like to be a part of the stream, then just put your message up on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're watching us, then do that and get a message to Lloyd. He's a fascinating guy already, right? Within the first 10 minutes we're on the screen. So let's start with Life Remixed. Obviously, we're here to have a little chat about that, and obviously interweave both of our stories and how it's all worked out for us along the way. I know you've had a read of the book. I know you can actually order it in South Africa, right? Because you've got yourself a copy now as well, right? So that's great.
It takes 2 weeks to arrive, so you've got to. It's not an instant thing. No instant gratification with it, which is cool.
But it's there. So look, let me read a few of these quotes at the start, and then we'll have a chat about something that's in those. So Steve Maraboli says, if you're not the hero of your own story, you're missing the whole point of your humanity, which I think is good, because a lot of people, they play like the bit parts, they don't actually star in their own movie, which I think is just in their own life, in the way they think. Paul Lockhart says it's the story that matters, not just the ending. And I think that, very much so, when I was unhappy, sick and broken, bankrupt after incurable disease that you've read about and that, you'll continue to read about, I had a story. I could start over with the story, and that was good. I love these other ones as well. Everything you want is just the other side of your greatest fear. That's Bob Proctor. And then this other one is from my friend Matt, who said, everything you want is just the other side of those burning hot coals, mate. When I went to Tony Robbins' UPW and I walked across the 2,000 degrees, thing, and I wasn't going to do it. I was like, nah, leave off. I'm just going to go back to the hotel and just chill out. And he went, no. He said, no, you've got to walk across these coals. I was like, I could barely walk anyway at that time. But he got me doing it. So, I mean, the whole thing about this particular chapter that we're here to talk about tonight is about testifying, right? Is about actually sharing your story. And so, you've been in the depths of addiction. You've been in places that I've been in, and that plenty of other been in. But you now help other people. I mean, you share your story quite openly, don't you?
I do, because we learn in the program that I work in that no matter how far down the path we've gone, our experience can benefit others. So I do help other people, and to be honest with you, I get a great deal of selfishly I help other people because it helps me. And also it's an amazing feeling to help somebody where a doctor couldn't help. You get doctors that have been at med school for 10 years of their life, and yet they can't help the guy laying in hospital that's coming around from a 3-month bender, that's lost his house, lost his wife, doesn't know which way he's facing. I never forget, I got a phone call when I was in early recovery. I was having one of those days where it was just like, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Oh, woe is me, worry, just one of those horrible days. And I got a phone call from a local hospital, and they said, look, we've got a guy here that's going to be coming round in the next half hour, and we're told to have the hand of AA there because as doctors, we don't really know how to treat this. And I drove to the hospital, and I remember the drive there, and I was just, woe is me, and this cloud over, and how am I going to solve that? And the rent's due, and this, that, and the other. After spending an hour with a guy helping him and using my experience, strength, and hope to tell him that it's not that bad, I don't even remember the drive home, Mark. It was like I floated home on a pink cloud, because my experience, strength, and hope had been so beneficial to this guy. The lights came on and he could see that life was worth living. I forgot about my woes and my troubles. And honestly, I don't even remember the drive home. And that was a cornerstone for me in my life, where I realized the value in helping someone else and sharing my experience, strength, and hope with somebody that hasn't got any hope. So, we do it for 2 reasons, I think.
I think it's something very rewarding when you start to help others. When you start to realize, I mean, I DJ'd, I played music, you know, I was just playing records, and people used to say to me, why do you do it, or what's your purpose, or this or that, and I'd be like, I don't know, you know, I mean, I just play a few records and that's about it. And then it was like when I started to get a bit wiser about getting solid with my purpose, which, as you know, I've said to you before, is about bringing joy, knowledge, inspire, and create. And as long as I'm doing those four things and actually bringing that joy, and that's what music is about, you know, it's about bringing joy to someone else. You know, I get a buzz as a DJ, but the mistake I went a bit too far down the ego route, you know, and it made it all about me. Aren't I fantastic? And that was when things started to go bad. And actually, when I took the focus off myself and actually started to make sure that it was just purely about the people in the club and stuff like that, that made DJing a lot more of a joyful experience. And now I just do everything in my life in line with that. But I didn't get there easily. That was the other thing. I didn't get there easily. I had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of writing and a lot of kind of getting it out there. And one of the biggest things for me, as I know you've read, was overcoming fear. And I realized that I'd been programmed with fear since I was a little boy. You know, it was all my parents and the generation that, you know, most of the people that were around me, that's all they knew. And then I started dealing with my fears by drinking alcohol at 14, taking various drugs at 15, 16, 17, taking ecstasy at 18 in 1988, dancing to Johnny Walker and Ramplin and Paul Oakenfold and Nicky Holloway, and then Boyzone and all the other stuff, you know, and all this amazing stuff. But yeah, essentially what I came to realize after about 20 years of just 20 years of oblivion, really. Yeah, I mean, 65 countries all over the globe, top 10 hit, blah, 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 blah. I sort of came round and was like, you know, I've been running for a long, long time. Does that resonate with you?
Where you've got, I mean, one of the paragraphs in your book that stood out for me, which I think is, firstly, I think, you know, go back 30 years when we were leaving school and we were, you know, stepping into adulthood. There wasn't any such thing really as a self-help book or a guide on how to live life. And I mean, at school, they didn't teach us that when you go and live in a flat, at the end of every month, the landlord's going to want his rent and the car's going to need fuel in it. And this is how you budget. I think we as a generation were very poorly skilled for adulthood anyway. And as an addictive personality, I mean, you've got a paragraph here. I'm going to read it if you don't mind. Please. People with these propensities are best described as relating socializers, typically focused on people rather than tasks, have a strong desire to help others, like to be liked, emotionally driven, don't like confrontation, and struggle to say no for fear of upsetting anyone. Actually, several people whose e-colours are yellow-blue describe themselves as party animals. If you knew Mark back in the day, do any of these behaviours sound like him? I know it's you because it was me as well. And I think that the people we became when we were in that space, Mark, I had to finally learn to become one person and to be at one with myself. And that's impossible when you're living 10 lives. I was the promoter, I was the husband, I was the father, I was the businessman, I was the Larry party animal, I was the guy going and getting all the drugs, I was the leader, I was the guy that was depressed, I was the boy about town. I had so many masks, and each one of those masks had relationships with people. But behind all of those masks, there's a guy dying with no relationships, no love, no nothing, because none of it was authentic. And you know, that goes back to wanting to be liked. So you put on this false bravado, you put on this false person because you want them to like that person, but really what you're doing, you're eroding your own self-esteem, because you're not getting any goodness out of that relationship whatsoever, because they're having a relationship with the wooden mask that you're holding up that day. And there's no value in that, you know. So authenticity, you know, it took me a long time. I mean, crikey, if I think back now, another cornerstone of my relationship was with my recovery and me remixing my life was getting honest. And, you know, as a person with a banging coke habit and a terrible alcohol problem and a terrible party problem and everything that went with it, I had to lie every day for my existence. You know, you could easily tell when I was lying because my lips would move. And you know, that was how life was. And, you know, only when you can start being honest with everything and everyone around you, and you come clean and you get honest and you say, this is me, I'm the 7 masks, I'm burning them, and this is me, take it or leave it. Can you start taking on board the energy of other human beings that do love you, and that can start building your self-esteem? And I remember when I got honest with my dog. I couldn't get honest with a human being, Mark, because I was so used to lying. I mean, if you rang me and I was on my way round to your house to drop off a demo tape or a bag of weed, it could have been anything, and you said, right, Lloydie, where are you? I'd say, Mark, I'm 5 minutes. Or I'll be 5 minutes, mate. I'll be 5 minutes. Of course, I wasn't going to be 5 minutes. I was in North London and you're in Kingston. But I told you what you wanted to hear. I told you I'll be 5 minutes because it's what you wanted to hear. And I had to I practiced on my dog. When my sponsor said to me, get honest with everyone, it meant saying to that dog, at 5 o'clock tonight, I'm going to feed you. And at 5 o'clock every night, I fed that dog. And I started getting used to the fact of, wow, that felt good. I made him a promise. I said, I'm going to feed you at 5 o'clock, and I've fed him. And I practiced being honest with the dog before I was even ready to take on another human being and bear myself and be honest. And, you know, my mum would ring me and say, can you drop a loaf of bread round? Rather than saying, I'll be there in 5, when I can't be there in 5 because I'm at least an hour's drive away, say, yeah, I can drop a loaf of bread round, but I'll be there in an hour with it. Now, you think of those 2 different scenarios. If I said to my mum, I'll be there in 5, by the time I got there in an hour anyway, because that's how long it was going to take me, she'd have said, oh, well, don't worry about it. I made my own sandwich and I won't bother asking next time. I'd be destroyed. There goes my self-esteem. Whereas if I just say, I'm going to be an hour and I will bring your bread, by the time I get it there, she's like, oh, well, I've prepared some salad and this is going to be lovely. And you feel good about yourself. So lying.
Let me ask you a question, because that's really important. Yeah, I think I had a couple of mates that were very much like that as well, you know, and it was hard to get a truth out of them at all.
Murder.
And yeah, it's really hard to be friends with someone like that, because you just like, he just keeps bullshitting me, right? But oh, hang on, I've got to put some money in the pot now. But I've got a question that came into my mind while you were talking as well. Was a couple of things. One, about school, and school doesn't teach you how to earn money. It doesn't teach you how to have a successful relationship. It doesn't tell you how to get ready for life skills at all. And you made the point about back then. Well, I certainly don't think it's much better now, in all honesty. Schools are just like, churning out good little employees to pass exams and follow rules, right? But what I would say, or the question I wanted to ask you was, like, when was your lowest point? Because for me, you'll be reading as well about my lowest point. It's when my ego broke down completely, when I was flying high and then I had nothing. I was bankrupt. I was signing on. I'd had an incurable disease. I'd been all over the shop, living in my mum's spare room at 39 years of age, going like, what the hell has just happened? But that was definitely like my lowest point. That was my point where I was like, this is it. This is as bad as it gets now. And I've really got to dust myself off and go again. And that's when I started to really reach out for help and support and study and learn and grow and all this great stuff that we talk about. I mean, people can go to my website, markwilkinsonofficial.com, for loads of recommended reading. But what was your sort of, was there a real low point that you just went, oh, what am I doing?
I think it was an encyclopedia of low points. It was, I mean, there was many highs, and don't get me wrong, the highs were higher than, one could ever imagine, but, biblical lows. I mean, I went to rehab 5 times and, none of it worked. So, you're sitting in rehab and 1 minute you're the party king and you've just come out of a concert or a festival and you've done this, and, a week later, because I hadn't been able to stop drinking, I'm sitting in rehab and they've taken my phone off me for a week and I can't speak to anyone and I'm shaking and the Four Horsemen are in my head. That happened a lot. And, and it's all a result really of the upbringing, the generation. There was no life skills taught to us. So we just pleased everybody. We just said yes and pleased and put the masks on and, pretend. And that led to a low self-esteem that we propped up with drugs and alcohol and outside enterprise. And I think you know, the remix begins when you actually take responsibility for yourself. It's about, you know, taking responsibility for your life, and, you know, stop, pause, and okay, I can direct this show, but I need to be responsible. I need to stop taking drugs and stop taking alcohol. I've been clean and sober just over 10 years now, and that's been, you know, I couldn't take responsibility and remix my life until I achieved long-term sobriety. And I don't mean sobriety where you're white knuckling, where you can't go to pubs and you can't go to clubs. I mean, I promise you, I'm the only 50-year-old walking around Tomorrowland drinking double espresso, wishing I could go home soon. But it doesn't bother me to be around it all at all, because there's not one part of me that wants it, because I'm very, very, very happy. I spent 30 years trying to get out my head. And then I spent 10 years reconciling myself to say, it's okay to be in your head. You're actually okay. And it's another thing, another one of your passages that really hit home here. Since I've started this project, I've been asked many times, what is a remix? So let me explain. A remix is when I take the vocals and musical parts of a pre-existing track and rearrange them into something new. I add parts I like and I remove or change the parts I don't, and something new is created. This then becomes a Mark Wilkinson remix. Your life remix is exactly the same. So that really hit me hard, because when I did finally break it down, and I got on my knees, and I was like, God, you better, you know, someone better step in and drive, because I keep it in the trees. You know, I did manage to keep the bits I like, because I've always been a kind guy. I've always liked other people, you know, so a lot of, you know, the DNA and the good stuff's still there. But, you know, I had to do a serious life inventory. I had to write a document, and I remember it was probably 15, 20 pages, all the things I didn't like about my life. I didn't like it when I got selfish, and I didn't like it when I got jealous, and I didn't like it when I got resentful. So I had to write all that stuff down. And I think in exactly the same way as the reason England put 11 players on the field last week is because they knew that the other team are going to put 11 players on the field. You've got to know who you're going up against. So you've got to do some sort of inventory to know, because now, you know, when I wrote that inventory on the bits of myself I don't like, even now, when I feel myself doing it, I recognize it and I say, oh, you know, we don't like that. So let's stop that right now. Even if it's walking up the stairs and leaving a pair of shoes on the stairs, just pick them up. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, that inventory and understanding what I was up against was very important. And I remember I did mine. I did, you know, 15, 20 pages, a real sort of P&L, a profit and loss on me. And then I went to a Catholic priest, and I sat with a Catholic priest, and I told him all about it. And he had his hand on my head. And I'm not a organized religion guy. I don't go to church. I'm spiritual, but, you know, not religious. And he just said, you're forgiven, my son. You can go in peace. And after I blurted out all my luggage and all the bad stuff, and I've sold drugs, and I've done this and I've done that, and I wasn't faithful here or whatever, you know, it's not stuff that, you know, at the end of it, he just had his hand on my head and he said, you can go in peace. And then after it, he stepped out into his garden. He said, should we burn this? And he screwed it all up and he put a cigarette lighter under it and he burned it. And, you know, again, I remember driving home from that experience thinking, well, I don't remember driving home. It was another one of those pink cloud moments where I was like, okay, I can get on with my life now. I've put it to bed. It's done. Now I can be honest with who I am. If somebody rings me and says, how long are you going to be? I will look around me and say, well, I'm 28 kilometers from you, probably 45 minutes, rather than I'll be there in 5 minutes. I'll be there in 5 minutes, just because it's what they want to hear. You've got to, you know, honesty. And, that really hit me in the book there. You know, a remix is keeping the bits you like, because we've all got.
Yeah, that. We're not all like, you know, devilish human beings. You know what I mean? We're like, you know, we've got good things. We're just a bit misguided. And if we need to, like, you know, re-guide ourselves to actually find those universal laws that I spoke about in one of the previous chapters, you know, a week or two ago. I think it was with Gav actually last week. The universal laws, you follow some universal laws. They're out there. We all know about gravity. That means if I drop the pen, it hits the desk. But we don't know about a lot of these other universal laws. And it's so important to tune into them. Google them, read Life Remixed, read all the other great self-development books that I've read, that get out there and get amongst amongst it. One of the things I do as well, and it's quite a good thing, at the end of Think and Grow Rich, which, by the way, is a book by Napoleon Hill that was written in 1930, and I wish someone had given it to me when I was about 10 or 11 before I started getting caught up in all sorts of other stuff. But at the end of it, there's a self-analysis questionnaire, and I do it annually. I do a self-analysis questionnaire. I answer these questions every year, and I go back to it and look at what I wrote last year, and I go back and I do it again and do it again and do it again, because there's a whole Greek philosophy thing that's basically a life that's unexamined is not worth living. And there's many people, Lloyd, that will get to their deathbed or their rocking chair or their deathbed without actually examining their lives, and then suddenly go, I could have done that different. Right? Yeah. And so what I like about you is that you have examined your life, and you continue to examine your life. I think you should write your own book. I think that would be a really great read. I think it would be amazing, just from the few minutes you've told us. And if you need some help, I'll coach you on how to do it. But the point is that you could write your own book, mate, without a shadow of a doubt. It would be fascinating.
Something I did, which is, you talk about examining your life, and it was a tool that I did it. I think I was in a rehab, yet another rehab, but it was profound. It was profound for me. But they sent me out in the garden. They said, dig a hole. That's your grave. You're going to get in that grave today. And I want you to write a letter from 7 people that are closest to you. I want you to read out. I want you to write the letter that person would read over your grave. And you're going to lay in the grave, and your mum's going to read what you want her to say. Your son's going to read what you want him to say, your wife. And then once we've stood around your grave and read all these letters, you can look at your life and you can say, am I on a spiritual trajectory that this is actually what these people will say at my funeral? And if you're not, then you're on the wrong path, because all I want my son to say at my funeral is that my dad was the best dad that ever walked the earth. My dad was there for me. My dad backed me. All I want my mum to say is he was an amazing son. He was there for me, and he headed up the family and took over every. That's what we all want. But in reality, when I sat in the cold light of day, they weren't going to write that, Mark. None of them were going to write. My son would have said, he's an arsehole. I see very little of him. He gets pissed and parties, and he runs around with rock stars. Yeah. So that was a sobering experience. 7 people stood around my grave that I'd dug and said, hi, I'm Sasha, and I'm Lloyd's son, and read what I would want him to say. And then I had to sit after and really interrogate and understand if that's what they really would say, and not. It was all. I had it all wrong.
I'll tell you what. That's a book title there. Letters from Beyond the Grave, and it's an exercise piece about actually getting people to do it. It's a beauty. Right. Well done. I like that a lot.
It is the most sobering thing, because it's only the 7 people that mean the most to you. What's Emma going to say around? What would you like Emma to say around your grave? And on the trajectory that you're currently on, is she going to say that? It's a really important question.
What I'm going to say, she's not here, but she is listening, and she will probably write something in the chat box in a minute. But it's important. I think I've been with Emma the last 8 years, and we've been married for the last 3-4 years. I would say that when we first got together, because I was 42 and she was 36 or 30, something like that. We first got together, we both had this very honest, open and honest, grown-up conversation where we said, listen, you've only got one chance at this, so don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. Particularly, that was like almost me talking to myself, But it was like I knew that, because I'd broken hearts before, including my own. But I'd broken, women's hearts before who did love me in their own way. And I'd let myself down. I'd let them down. I hadn't been the best young man. I hadn't been the best son. I hadn't been the best brother. I hadn't been da. So I really relate to what you're saying. I've got to bring up a few comments here, mate, because we're getting loads of beauties up here from generally from people that you know as well. So Mark's back. He says, Brother Lloyd, you're such an inspiration to so many out there. Thank you for shining my lights. Thank you for shining a light, my champ. Is Dr. Leslie an actual doctor?
He is.
Okay, good. Good.
He's
So
a very, very intelligent man as well.
Love it. I want to do a doctorate, Leslie. So I want to do a PhD next, but we'll talk about that. Lloyd is incredible counsel, walking me through my most difficult time of my life. Beautiful. That's amazing. How am I going to say this right? Elsby. Elzeby, thank you. What a brutally honest conversation. Massive respect, Lloyd. You have proven yourself as an authentic man who is kind and has a brutal yet successful past and a global future. And David says, thank you, Lloyd, for staying clean. So there's some beauties coming in, mate. Genuinely, you have a really interesting story, and I think you should probably put something together, and you could make it a goal in the next 5 years and do something. Because to go from where you're talking about, I said at the start, a Surrey boy done good now. I love the fact that, you've done all this world travel similar to myself. You've done 30 years in the dance music industry, and somehow you've ended up with the biggest festival in Africa. Now, when we talk about fears and overcoming fears, I haven't put on a huge festival. I've put on club nights, and that's hard. It's quite hard work to actually put on a festival. You've got to overcome some huge fears. You've got to make sure you're doing it right.
Interestingly, my business partner that I built that festival with, Tom, is also in recovery. And, we'd both danced with success, but we were both masterful self-sabotagers, as are, self-sabotage. I was a black belt with self-sabotage. So and Tom, my business partner, he was also in recovery. So, the energy we had to go out there and prove everyone wrong was, that energy, that chemistry, nothing could stop us. We really could have moved a mountain. I remember we lost Jamiroquai the night before, or literally a week before the show. Suddenly Jamiroquai didn't want to come and do it. Jay didn't want to do it. The amount of people we rung that night. In the end, it was Tom's dad that had a relationship with the guy that looks after Jay's cars, and he called Jay privately and said, "Listen, you can't drop that booking. That's and anyway, it all got fixed. But we had this determination to succeed. That it was just unparalleled. It was there was nothing that was going to stop us, and that was an amazing thing, because we both, sabotaged everything we'd done before through drugs and alcohol, united as, alcoholics and addicts are generally, and also people, as we've just described, slightly higher IQ, but they're very, very resourceful people. You run around London at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting what you need to go clubbing and getting this and getting that. You're very resourceful people. It's a matter of honing that resource into something positive. You can't actually not be successful. You can't.
You're right. Because you're right. I think there's a channel. There's there's a couple of things to this. There's like universal law, which is create or disintegrate. If you channel your energy into creation rather than disintegration, you use the same energy pretty much, but it's where you channel it. And if you channel it in that, as I do now, as you do now, that's a creative thing. Writing a book. A creative thing is putting on a huge festival. A creative thing is making my my new track with Kenny Thomas, which I know you've heard. Do you like it?
I love it. I think you've got a wicked hit. It's a class track. You've got to have the right ears on it. Anyone without a real proper understanding for, I guess, Brit funk house music. Kenny Thomas obviously is a legend. What was that big track he did years ago?
Oh, he did Outstanding. Thinking about your love. Thinking about your love.
Yeah, Thinking About Your Love. We play Outstanding all the time, that Kenny Thomas twist. But the track that you've done it reminds me of Incognito, Always There. It's got that magical synth. It's got that, and I'll tell you what the drum patterns remind me of a little bit. Do you remember a track called The Last Rhythm?
Yeah.
That had a sort of a skating percussion that kind of came in and came out. It was like quite a skating sound. For me, and it was like Last Rhythm, Incognito, Always There. It's a hit, mate. There's no question.
That's beautiful. Thank you for saying it. I do really appreciate that. It's the track's called Sweet Sweet Music, and do subscribe to my YouTube channel wherever you're watching in the world. Do subscribe. We do a load of videos. I've got videos every single week doing various different things. I do Monday motivation, and so I'll keep you all up to date on the Kenny Thomas track. We're looking around for ways and means, and the story behind it is obviously to raise money for Christina, his beautiful daughter, who they spend a lot of money on to keeping her healthy. And I know you know a lot about
situation.
So she was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor when she was 4. She's now 8. They offered her chemo, but they said she'd be dead within 6 months. And Kenny said, "No way." He said, "I'm not doing that. I saw chemo kill my mother. I'm not letting you do that to my daughter." And they found specialists to actually get Christina back onto a more healthy kind of lifestyle, but they're in Germany and it costs a lot of money. So the bottom line is that actually Kenny has to spend a lot of his money keeping Christina well. So I would like to donate the proceeds of this track to of Sweet Sweet Music, this track, to Christina, because ultimately we want to do our bit and we want to help Kenny as much as we can.
I think
so. Go on.
Yeah, it's a hit, and I've got a lot of friends down here that are DJs, and if I can do anything to get traction over here, I'll do it, because what a great cause.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
And we're in festivals. It's not like we're busy at the moment. Well,
yeah. There might be some coming back, later this year or next year. But yeah, I take your point. But you've already been really helpful and introduced me back to Roy the Roach, and I know you sent it to Little Louis Vega and a few people like that. So this is all great stuff, and it's a positive thing. And again, it's about creation, isn't it? It's taking that energy and adding it to creation rather than doing what you said, like after a nightclub and trying to ring someone and find something and whatever, and which ultimately ends up with disintegration, because you haven't got the energy for a week afterwards. You feel terrible, and and you get in that addictive cycle, and it doesn't help, right? But my fears, so my 2 biggest fears that I've put in this book, and these are the things I felt when I was younger. One of them is I am not enough, and the other one is I won't be loved. Those are my 2 biggest fears, and they definitely come into, there's 6 major fear groups: poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. And those 2 that I'm talking about there come into those things. And I studied this from Think and Grow Rich, amongst other books. But what strategies have you used, do you think, when you've realized you woke up, you faced them? I mean, the subtext is looking beyond the dance to face the music, right? When you faced the music, and you started to come out the other side, what sort of strategies did you do to sort of remove those fears, get yourself past it, and start to be more courageous and more positive?
There was 2 important. I got taught to live by an old Afrikaans guy. He was 36 years sober. He was a philosopher, and he had a big belly, and he spent hours and hours and hours with me. And one of our steps says we ask God to remove our character defects. We ask God to remove our shortcomings. So a character defect is something that we do that we shouldn't do, and a shortcoming is something that we should do but we don't. And asking, and when I talk about God, I talk about my own higher power and my version of God. It certainly it's not filed under any organized religion. But when I was able to do my personal inventory and tap into myself, I was able to see the stupid things I was doing before I did them. And I think you and I were talking about this last week. It's like a crossfader on a mixer. What he taught me was, we're all born with a moral compass. We all know right from wrong. I don't care where you're from, what caste, what creed, what color. We know what's right and wrong. We do. Now that's a God-given thing. Someone put a moral compass there. Someone said, we know right from wrong. But now what that old man taught me was, when you're about to do something that you shouldn't do, stop and listen to both voices. Now the Lloyd voice, when I was in addiction and living that wild life, the Lloyd voice would have just been saying, let's do it, get it. That's a great deal. A load of gear for a cheap price, or a load of whiskey, or 50 quid, for a great bottle of malt whiskey. I would have been saying, get it. But there's always that quiet voice, Mark, that's very, very quiet, and the quiet voice is probably saying, this isn't a good idea. Remember the last time you did this, you ended up in rehab and it didn't work out. So what are you doing? Don't do it. You know, we're very good at muting that quiet voice. And I think, you know, people go and spend hundreds of thousands of pounds to go and live and set up the side of a mountain in the Himalayas and try and find out what it means to live consciously. My thing for living consciously is listen to your moral compass. That's your conscience. So my conscience is, if I'm about to do something, like I pull up outside a bottle store and they've got a great special for Jack Daniels, it's not safe for me to drink alcohol. Every bit of Lloyd is saying, get a case at that price. But the moral compass, the little quiet voice is saying, no, don't do it. So the trick with me is that I've got the God voice on channel 1 and I've got the Lloyd voice on channel 2, and I've got the crossfader in my hand. Now it's up to me where that crossfader is. If I want to quieten down the Lloyd voice and do what's right and listen to channel 1, which is what I know I should do, then I should do that. If I'm going to hit what I call the F it button, then I will listen to channel 2 and do what Lloyd's going to say. But Lloyd has already proven he's not very good at making decisions with his own life. So therefore, I need to tap into a power greater than myself or my conscience or the universe or whatever it may do to help me keep that crossfader over on the left and do the right thing. And I think living a good life is a succession of repetitive actions of doing the right thing. And if you keep doing the right thing, keep being honest, keep helping people, you're going to get traction, even if it's just you build your own self-esteem, which is where it starts. If you've got no self-esteem, you can't do anything.
You build your own confidence and you build your own belief in yourself. And when you know,
and then a magnetism.
And when you know that, you know, you're not going to make any more silly mistakes. I am completely confident in belief in myself now. I've been through, I feel like the Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne, who's been sort of in that in my world, in that self-imposed prison for like 30 years, finally swims through the river of shit. Finally swims through the river of shit. That's another tenner in the charity.
That's 20 quid.
Yeah, it's 20 quid.
My total charity. I'll knock you up for it on Monday.
Wait, keep a tab. But I swum through that river of stuff and I've come out the other side, and it's called like that moment where you sort of go, okay, do you know what I mean? Now I'm ready to get back. And to be honest, that for me was about 10, 12 years ago. And ever since, all I've done is commit myself to the good things so that everyone around me, my wife, my mum, my brother, her family, you know, all my friends, everyone, you know, when they're stood around my grave one day, will actually have good things to say. Now, I've got a few more in here. David says, is your book available on Kindle, Mark? Yes, it is, David. You can also get a hard copy as well to South Africa or anywhere around the world. If you go on Amazon, you can get yourself a copy on Kindle as well.
You get it on Take-A-Lot in South Africa, guys.
Okay, thank you. And otherwise, if you want a signed copy, you can get it on my website, and then I can get it signed and sent down to you as well, wherever you are. So that's no problem. So thank you for asking, David. Brendan says, what an inspiration you've been to all around you that have seen you broken, and in a few short years watch you recreate yourself into a beautiful, selfless soul. You absolute legend. He's not talking about me, Lloyd. He's not talking about me. He's talking about you.
Very dear friend of mine.
That's very beautiful. And there's some other stuff coming in here. Kenny, Mark, David, Leslie, they're all commenting, mate. They're all saying lovely things about you and also some lovely things about this channel and what we're doing and everything else here. And so
I think it's important that these channels are publicized because, you know, more so probably for as much as there's a lot of people that are our generation that are still not got it. You know, they're still floundering. They're like, there's, you know, I'm in my early 50s now, but more so the young people, thank God there's books out here like this. I mean, we should have been given Life Remixed as our O-level English, Life Remixed, project the life out of it, and you will get some sort of semblance on how to have a life. And I think that's why I wanted to be involved, because to promote taking responsibility for your life is everything, and if everybody took responsibility for their life, we wouldn't be facing the societal problems that we face.
I agree. I mean, responsibility is the key to freedom is actually one of the quotes that I've put in here. I think it was from Tony Robbins. And when I started to listen I mean, I'd spent 20 years of my life running around the world, playing records, sex, drugs, and house music, thinking I was getting away with it, you know, and actually not taking responsibility for anything. And actually,
look how far I ran. I'm still here. I mean, I ran from Surrey and then up to London, and then I lived in Hampton Court, and then Ibiza, and then and all I was doing actually geographical moving is generally running from your problems. It's escape. So, you know, I don't think people take alcohol, cocaine, heroin, sex. They're not addicted to that substance. That's a symptom. They're addicted to escape. They cannot reconcile themselves with just being in the skin they're in. And that's an art. That's mastery. To be comfortable in the skin you're in and just be okay. And I'm not saying we've all got to walk around like these, you know, we're not talking about spiritual perfection. We're talking about spiritual progress. Every day, spiritual progress. Because, I mean, you know, you said there, what's your biggest fear? My biggest fear is looking at myself in the mirror and pulling myself apart again, because I don't like doing it, because it's a very uncomfortable thing to do. But unless we do it, we don't know where we're going wrong.
You see that?
Yep, I can see that.
You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. That's another very, very powerful book. And Louise Hay was 96, died recently, but incredible book. Another one, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Amazing little book.
I've read that book.
These are books from, like, you know, well, certainly As a Man Thinketh 150 years ago. You Can Heal Your Life, you know, 20 years ago or something like that. And the point is that the information is starting to come out more and more and more. And I believe there is a shift in consciousness. I also believe, as you've read in my book, in every crisis, there's an opportunity. And the world has been in crisis for the last 18 months with this virus. And we won't go off into that. But the bottom line is that the world has been in crisis, but there is an opportunity. As we start to come out of it, there will be an opportunity for growth, for, you know, I'll give you an example. I've written this book, Life Remixed, just been out the last few months. The story basically is about how I overcame my own crisis 12 years ago and 17 years ago with the disease and 12 years ago with the bankruptcy. But that's how I've overcome, and all the strategies I've put in there, that's how I've done it. And that's how I've turned myself into a multiple business owner, entrepreneur, director, coach, best-selling author, property developer. And we're just doing our first £1 million property deal. All this amazing stuff, record producer again, you know, maybe some DJing a bit here and there. But the point is that I've recreated myself. And then lo and behold, and so my crisis was actually an opportunity. And I know you've been in crisis at times in your life, but when you start to listen to the crisis and you go, right, okay, if there's an opportunity for me to change here. So I know a lot of people that have been living that music dream for the last 12 years while I've been recreating myself. COVID has come along and it's wiped them out. You know, I mean, emotionally, financially, it's kind of wiped them out. But then what I'm coaching a lot of people, and I say to them, it's okay. This is now an opportunity for you to change for the next crisis that will be along in 10 years' time, sort of thing. Yeah.
I think, like, you know, having a program and reading a book like this and having a program is so critical. Remember, as guys, we were brought up in a time where it's not okay to ask for help. Especially of an emotional nature. I mean, that's unheard of. Asking for help, or I feel emotionally bankrupt, or I feel scared. You couldn't say that. I mean, I couldn't. No, you couldn't. But, you know, having a program, I don't care what program people have, as long as it's a decent book written by someone that knows. Hang on.
Yeah, don't worry. I had my dog
that knows what they're doing. As long as there's a program, I think that, you know. Sorry, my dog's going.
Right, hold on. You don't worry. I don't know if you caught it earlier, but my little puppy Frankie came launching into the room about 10 minutes ago. Did about 3 laps of zoomies and launched himself back out. I was thinking, oh no, maybe like I might have to leave the screen in a minute and go and sort it out. Anyway, so don't worry about a dog barking.
What I was saying about a program, you know, in my program in AA, that I live in an AA, I live a 12-step program. I live that program. It suggested we have a program. So, but what I once heard a guy, and in fact, the guy that taught me say is, we suggest you have a program in exactly the same way that if you get one of those parachutes and you're traveling on a light aircraft and they give you a parachute under your seat, if you were to put that parachute around your neck, there's a little rip tab just under the left chest and it says pull. Well, that's also a suggestion. So, but if you don't do it, the outcome ain't good. And I think with any program like this, Life Remixed, I mean, I cannot wait to get stuck into your book. And I know everyone around me is going to want to read it next. And it'll probably be quite big in South Africa because people will get to hear about the kind of work that you're doing and also your coaching courses. But as long as you've got a program, you're making progress and you're taking responsibility. It's about sitting for an hour a week and taking responsibility for where it's going. And
I agree.
I think that's the great difference and the great opportunity of the next generation. We've got to teach people that it's okay to say, Dad, I'm scared, or Dad, I feel emotionally, I'm scared my girlfriend's going to leave me and I'm fearful, because we couldn't say that. We would then have been, you'd have lost all your mates in the playground overnight. You'd have been ostracized for showing any kind of fear, Mark.
I know what you mean. I do. And yeah, so I mastered that fear very skillfully for 20 plus years. I think the thing is as well is that what I do now is I do a Life Remixed 12-month program as well. And that 12-month program is a self-development program to get people back on the right track, you know, and it's a 360-degree thing. So it can cover a bit of business and multiple sources of income. It's also going to cover a lot of personal development. I was on the golf course with a guy the other day, and I say young guy, you know, he's 35, you know, I'm 50. I was on the golf course the other day with this young lad and I told him about Life Remixed, the book, and he was like, oh, it's amazing. I said, I've got a 12-month program because in the last 10 years, I've spent about 55 grand on myself, getting myself coached by experienced people, you know, top level people, Robbins, Proctor, Kevin Green here in the UK, and top level people to guide me, to get me focused, to get me moving, which has launched me into this world, this guy that you can see now. This happy, healthy, wealthy, successful guy that you can see now. And I'm happy that I invested in myself because it's the best thing I ever did. You know, invest in me is the ultimate self-love for me to step up and go for it. Yeah. We do this 12-month program now, and we help as many people as we possibly can to build and to grow and to have a happy life, because we're not here for long. It goes quick. But if we look at someone like Bob Proctor, he's just turned 87. He's my mentor, as you know. He's put a nice few words on the back of the book there as well. He's in The Secret in 2006, touched 300 million people's lives. You know, if anyone hasn't watched The Secret, go and watch it. That's the entry level thing that I got into in the first place. But Bob Proctor's 87. Now I'm 50. You're maybe a year or two older. But the bottom line is that he's got 37 years on me. You know, and I plan to be here that long doing this stuff and, like, you know, doing good work and helping as many people as I possibly can. And it's all part of the bigger purpose, the bigger mission, the bigger joy. And I know that's what you do, Lloyd. And that's why we're here, because like attracts like, and it's a positive thing for us to do together tonight, you know.
It also, Mark, it was crystallized for me. I don't know whether I even told you about it, but in January, I had one normal day in 2020, which was the 1st of January. On the 2nd of January, I had a terrible jet ski accident. I broke my back in 5 places. I ended up in ICU for 6 weeks. And for the first couple of weeks, it wasn't confirmed that I was going to walk again. And I made a deal with God or the universe, or, you know, my perception of God. I said then, if you give me my legs back and you make me walk again, I promise you I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure I'm adding value to other people. Any business that I'm involved in, I will not have a business anymore. I will only run social enterprise. So a social enterprise is something with a social or a community agenda and shareholders' dividends. It's okay to make money from it, but unless it's got a social agenda as well, we shouldn't be doing it. And it's much better than an NPO, a non-profit organization, because an NPO ultimately is always going to be reliant on handouts. And as the world economy tightens, these handouts are going to dry up. Whereas a social enterprise has got an agenda. It's okay to make profit, but it's still got a community-driven initiative baked into the business. That's the only business I want to be involved in now. And that was because I had to have a conversation with the man upstairs, laying in ICU, laid there for 6 weeks. All I could move was my neck, mate. And it really crystallized for me. Give me another chance and I'll go and do even more. I was already helping people in AA, and I was already coaching people, and I'd already made a start on this Testify phase of my life. I think is that's the chapter we're in.
Yeah, it's a chapter title, Testify. Yeah, I mean, hands up. Just hang on one second. Just out of interest, hands up. How many people would read Lloyd's book? Right. I mean, I'm guaranteeing there's going to be at least like 100 people across various platforms going, I want to read Lloyd's book. Anyway, keep going. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So you put yourself back together.
Well, I mean, I was in hospital. I was in ICU. It was serious. My back was broken in 5 places. I shattered my scapula. I broke 5 ribs and I punctured a lung. And I'm a guy. I've never even been in the only hospitals I've been in are rehabs. And obviously, you know, when you wake up in a rehab, you're through parts to the wind anyway. But you know, spending 6 weeks in ICU, and certainly the first 2 weeks, not knowing if I was definitely going to walk again or play golf or ride my dirt bike. I'm into my dirt bikes. I like enduro. I ride dirt bikes up mountains. I love all that. You know, laying there for 2 weeks thinking, oh my goodness, that, you know, my life is really going to change now because I'm going to spend the rest of it in a wheelchair. I prayed and prayed and prayed. And I said, I will accelerate my Testify phase of my life and help other people and make sure that I make such an impression that it's really worth me giving my legs back. You know, I was bargaining because you go mad in there. Then I wasn't on any drugs except painkillers. You know, you sleep all day and then they turn the lights out and you think, what am I going to do with myself? I mean, you really do start unraveling. And, you know, thank goodness I didn't unravel. I'm quite a strong person. But the point is, I knew that when I walked out of that hospital 6 weeks later, I was going to spend the rest of my life helping people. And I know it's going to be the most rewarding part of my life. And I've had some mad stuff.
Kenny says Lloyd forgets to say he got a gold in an enduro event 8 months after breaking his back. There you go. That's nothing short of a miracle. I'm proud to have been there to see it. Thanks, Kenny.
And I've never got a gold before. I rode with that guy, Ken, and he tricked me into a gold because there was a blue loop and a silver loop and a green loop, and I was gonna be happy with the silver, and he made me go the hardest loop first, and then he told me at the end of the hardest loop, you've just done the red loop, which means if you can do the red loop, all you've got to do before the sun goes down is do a blue loop and a green loop, and you've got gold. And he's a dear friend of mine, and he tricked me, and we did it, and I got that gold medal 6 months after literally coming out of hospital after breaking my back. And it's another cornerstone in my life. It was a very special thing.
Well done. You know, well done. I mean, you know, yes, you know, I've had my own problems with my own legs and not been able to walk and stuff like that, and it's soul destroying. It's literally like, you know, it's something you just took for granted. You're just like when you're young and chasing around nightclubs and dancing for 8 hours all night and you're indestructible. That's exactly right. And then suddenly life throws you a curveball. And I often find that it's not about you know, being better or worse or anything, but it's about continual improvement, like you said. But I often find the people that are further ahead and the people that are actually like, you know, I mean, there's a whole thing about most multimillionaires were bankrupt in their 30s and stuff like that. I think if you've been through something that is a life-changing moment, like a real low, I nearly swore again there, when you've been through a real low, it kind of, if you dust yourself off and you get going again and you say, right, that's not me, this is me, and here I go again, and you do it better this time, the second time, or even the third or fourth time, whatever, but you do it better, you've got so much value to add to other people.
It almost sounds perverse to say it, but if I could rewrite history, I don't think I would write that jet ski accident out of my life.
Yeah, there you go.
Because it was so profound in the way I reframed everything. What's important to me, Darrell, my wife, I mean, we've been together 10 years, but maybe there was a bit of me taking her for granted, and you know, I don't anymore. And yeah, I wouldn't write it out of my life. It was very, very painful, and it's not something I would recommend.
Here's the thing, Lloyd, right? I had to learn. I didn't have to. I chose to learn to be grateful for an incurable disease in my body and bankruptcy. I chose to be grateful for those things, right? Not at the time. At the time, I was like, "This is awful! Like, what a disaster!" You know what I mean? This is worst experience in the world. Poor me, right? But once I'd come out of them and started to put my life back together after both experiences, I was like, actually, my friend calls it nature's handbrake, like slow down, stop, sort yourself out a bit, right? Yeah. Start listening. But the point is that actually those were two of the greatest things that ever happened to me. And that's why I can put them in the book comfortably, because I am literally grateful for them, because they helped me grow into this bloke.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. And I mean, it just made me reframe, and it's kind of re-energized. Even reaching out to you, that's part of my new Testify phase of my life, where I'm going to help. I mentor 2 people at any one time. I sponsor a couple of people in AA with drug and alcohol addiction at any one time, and I'm watching that manifest and bring me joy. But even in business now, I'm not interested in the old way of doing things. I'm going to only operate social enterprises. In fact, I mean, I'm involved in some really cool stuff at the moment. I'm involved in some Delicious Festival is actually a food and music festival. We're going to be doing some videos with music stars cooking, and instead of I could probably charge Uncle Ben's Rice a fortune to be in a cooking video with Jamiroquai cooking a chili con carne, for example. But instead of asking Uncle Ben's for money, I'm going to ask them for rice. And so I'm going to use rice to give to the poor. So I'm going to use the eyeballs of the wealthy, because that's how you earn your views on YouTube, to give rice to the needy. So it's a big thing myself and my business partner Tom are busy with at the moment, but I'm finding so much energy for that, because I've got boundless energy for it, because I know we can make a difference.
Mate, I'm so on board. I'm really pleased that we've had this connection tonight, and I'm so on board with what you're doing, and all power to you. And I think that there's a lot of synergy, not just from the fact that we're both from Surrey kind of parts of the world, and we've made our way sort of in parallel, and now we come together and get talking. But because you're an absolute gentleman, and you've learned by your mistakes, and in every crisis there's an opportunity, because ultimately you've been through that river, you've come out the other side, you're like, that's not the way to be. Bob Proctor said to me, your way isn't working, try mine. And I went, I had nothing to lose.
Brilliant.
I went, all right then. I said, I had nothing to lose. Go on then, teach me something. Go on then. And he did. I was like, yes, thank you, Bob.
But you also said you tried. You found hundreds of ways in your first life to be unsuccessful.
I did. I found hundreds of ways to be completely unsuccessful, and now I found 1 or 2 to actually be successful. But look, I'm going to read the last little bit of the book, and then we'll look at the remix opportunities together. The last little bit of this chapter, which I've written here. I'm not interested in how old or young you are. You can have results or excuses, but not both. It's never too late to make a difference in your life and in other people's lives. Get comfortable being a successful person. Get comfortable helping other people when they need you. Life Remixed is my testimony, and I'm really hoping that it helps you and anyone else you decide to share it with to learn, to grow, and to smile more, to enjoy it all, because that's the purpose of why we're here.
Yeah, it's profound.
Did I write that?
Yeah, did you write that? Not bad,
I did write that. It's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, we wouldn't have, like I said earlier, I don't know how we would have, we couldn't have even discussed a book like this when we were at school. It would be seen to be, that's what the girls are doing over there, or something. There was this macho thing. Do you know what I mean? We had to talk about, bigger stuff.
Yeah. You're right.
Real stuff. This is the real stuff.
Yeah.
We're only here once.
I think the point is that it takes a brave, courageous person to stand up and say, I've got a problem here, and I need some help. And all I've done consistently since the first time I saw The Secret in 2006, whilst I was in absolute agony, all I've done is reach out for help and support from lots of people. Because what I've learned is that it's about the team of people. It's not all about me and my ego and I great, making music and putting a record in the top 10 and all that. That was all very well, but Bob's your way isn't working, try mine. Okay. And now I'm doing it all completely differently. And it feels great. It really does feel great. And I think that's a real power. So, chapter 12, remix opportunities. So at the end of every chapter, I put remix opportunities and little things that I think that, sort of sum up what I've said in the chapter and stuff like that. And so the first one I say is identify, face, and overcome the 6 basic fears. And I think that's an important one to face your addictions, right? I mean, you would agree?
Absolutely. Standing in front of the mirror, hardest thing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what anyone else thinks of you is none of your business.
And that is so true. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it's true though, isn't it? You know, I used to spend most of my life worrying about what other people thought. You know, as a DJ, as a producer, always worrying about what other people thought about me. What a waste of time.
Absolutely. What they think about you is not your business.
No, exactly. It's like, I know, as long as that's a big point. That's a big point about being comfortable in your own skin. Because if you're comfortable in your own skin, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks because you know you're doing it right for you.
That's right. And being comfortable in your own skin means operating with a crossfader in front of you with what you want to do and probably what's the wrong thing to do and the right thing to do. And it's keeping that crossfader over on the left and a succession of, you know, they call house music a succession of repetitive beats. I call life a succession of repetition of doing the right thing.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good, Lloyd, and it's a brilliant analogy that as well. By the way, the old crossfader analogy, I like that a lot because it makes you got channel one right.
It's just living consciously. You know, to tune into. You know, I'm living consciously. It's as simple as that. Tune into your moral compass. We've all got one. Just listen to it. Turn your own bullshit down and listen to what your moral compass is telling you to do. And I guarantee you, it won't put a foot wrong.
One of the things I say is that we are a spirit, a soul, and energy, and we've been given a mind and we've been given a body. And it's up to us to actually use that mind and that body. The mind can end up being corrupted. If you put the news on and watch the news for like more than about 30 seconds, you end up just getting bombarded with negativity and stuff like that. It's down to you to cultivate your mind, you know, protect your mind, cultivate your mind, and look after this body. And as long as you do those things, as you say, your spirit, your soul, your energy, that's the bit to live from. And that's the bit that always makes the right decision, right?
Yep. That's where it's all at. The answer to everything is already within, but you got to know where to tune in. And if you can tune in and live consciously, there's nothing to be fearful of.
So the next points I've said, stand up and be counted. I think that's like responsibility, you know, taking responsibility and the key to freedom. And the last, obviously, I've said attend a Life Remixed event, of course, and I will be putting more events on later this year. Tony Robbins events, Kevin Green events. There's huge seminars and events out there. You can learn as long as you're up for it and you want to know more. You can learn and learn and learn, and you will always improve. And I think that's a real thing. I became a student of life because it was when Bob Proctor said a dis-ease is 2 words and you must hyphenate that. That's when I was like, what? I was like, a doctor's just told me I've got a disease and you're saying it's a dis-ease and I'm not at ease. I thought I was fine. So why am I not at ease? And then that was when I really started going for it. And the last one, mate, because this nails it for tonight for you and me. Share your story, testify, because you'll help someone else. Yeah.
That was my big revelation in hospital. It wasn't even 2 years ago. I mean, it was the beginning of 2020. I had one normal day, 2nd of January 2020. The accident and in ICU. Then I came out and COVID came along and the business got shut down. So, but the one thing that's come out of it is really accelerate that aspect of my life. Testify. Well,
you've had time to think about it as well. If COVID's giving you a gift, it's giving you time to think about this. It's giving you a time to think about how best to use your energies now going forward. And I believe that. I believe you're going to do more and more wonderful things in the world, Lloyd. You know, in South Africa, across Europe, across the UK. I know you'll do a lot more. And I, for one, I'm looking forward to what we can create together, because I think there's a lot of positive energy, and we've got so many great contacts between us. I think it would just be a really, really interesting journey, mate.
Yep. You know, wake up every morning and I'm now so comfortable in the skin that I'm in. I'm excited when I open my eyes in the morning and I see it's daylight. I'm almost like, wicked, another day. You know,
another chance.
I never used to experience that. You know, do you know, it's quite funny. My dog. We do the happy dance every morning. She stands at the top of the stairs here, and she's so happy that it's another day in her life. I mean, she's a rescue dog, and she's got an amazing life. We live on a golf course, so she goes walking on the golf course every day, and it's, you know, it's cool. But she stands at the top of the stairs every day, and she reminds us how grateful we should be for every day. And she stands there wagging her tail, and if she could talk, all she would be saying is, "Look, everybody, it's another day. It's another day. Look, everyone, it's another day. Everyone, get up! It's another day. Isn't this amazing?" She's that excited. She's so excited about it being another day, and she shows me every morning, "Be that grateful. It's another day. It's another day. You know, don't take it for granted. It's another day."
Yeah, don't waste it. Don't waste it. I mean, Lewis Senior says, part of the forward that you read out from Lewis Senior says, don't waste a heartbeat, you know, and because you've only got a certain amount in your life, so don't waste one, you know, live in the moment, keep going, keep growing, keep doing good things. And Lloyd, all power to you, mate. You've drawn some amazing analogies tonight, and I'll leave it. We've got Mark here. Mark's just saying, beautiful guys, thank you. And Kenny just says, thanks, gents. Best bit of content I've seen for a long, long time. So that's just a couple of the things. There's loads more comments and loads more stuff out there, Lloyd. But like I say, mate, it's been an absolute honour. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I mean, who'd have thought I'd be talking to a member of Bros? I mean, come on. So, you know, it's all power to you, mate. Enjoy the rest of your evening down in South Africa. And I'm looking forward to when we get the opportunity to talk again. So I'll let everyone else go. You stay where you are, mate. I just want to say thanks to everyone for, you know, listening in tonight, being a part of this, watching it on the catch up. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel, share this video with your family, with other people. Listen to an inspirational guy like Lloyd. And of course, you know, grab yourself a copy of Life Remixed and look up my website, markwilkinsonofficial.com as well. Big love from Lloyd and myself, and take care of yourselves. We look forward to catching up with you soon. Cheers, Lloyd. Thanks, mate.